How you doing, guys? Today we are heading out to the shed, and look at the lawn. It's roasty toasty, I'll tell you. It hasn't rained in like forever, but the figs are coming in. I love my fig tree. I've had this thing forever. Literally, I think I've had it for maybe 13 or 14 years. It's taken a beating. As you can tell, we got some figs up here. You got some smaller figs growing in over here. I even got figs growing over here. Can't wait. Late August, or middle to late August, they'll all ripen up and we'll have some tasty figs. But that's not what we're talking about today, because really a fig tree could be kind of boring. What we're talking about today is my 1056, and ultimately curing a problem with this thing. It's not really a problem. It's not an issue, like a hardcore issue, but it is a little bit of an issue that's been driving me nuts. This, where the battery is, this area right here, if you follow the channel, you know that I have all of my relays and my starter solenoid, everything to that effect, in this little covered area. Now that particular design works out great. What is bad is this fiberglass lid I made. It looks beautiful and it functions to a point correctly, but the problem that I'm having is these little wing nuts that would typically hold the battery that goes right here. If this was original, it would have the battery there. They keep loosening up and the lid keeps almost falling off. And it's no matter how tight I make these, no matter if I put lock washers or not, they just loosen up, and I end up losing one, or the lid starts to fall off. It's just bad. So I'm gonna try to redesign this whole situation in order to make it better, essentially. So let me just show you something here. So I'm gonna take these wing nuts off. That's what holds the whole lid in place. We take off these spacers that I made, put those there, and then if we just grab this, we can lift up and pull it out. And as you can tell, that's what's underneath that lid. A lot of people ask me what's in there, and that's essentially, there it is, essentially. Sorry about the camera work here. I'm trying to put this down without totally destroying it, because I don't know if I'll use it again or not. But starter solenoid, hot wires, inline fuses for the hot wire from the battery. We have a relay right here. That relay runs the fuse panel, turns the fuse panel on and off. Inside the fuse panel, obviously, we have all our pigtails off that run all the accessories, from the lighter to the lights to the fuel pump. And I'm basically going to have to relocate all of this into a new box. So let me show you what we're going to use. So one of the two things I picked up at the Wheel Horse show this year was this toolbox. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not fully familiar with all of these little nuances of the mid-60s tractors. From what I've been told, this is for like a 603, 604, I don't know, anything that didn't have a battery during the 60s, so not like an 857. So because like the 8 is 8 horsepower, the 5 is electric start, and the 7 is the year, 67. So 857. So it's like a 603, 6 horsepower, recoil start, 1963, something to that effect. Well, anyways, instead of putting a battery in the middle of the tractor, they sometimes put this toolbox, which is pretty nicely made. And overall, the problem with these boxes is they didn't have any drain holes, so you end up with a lot of them just being completely rotted out. This one actually is quite solid. And what I'm planning on doing is modifying this toolbox in order to fit and to use in the middle of my 1056. And ultimately taking all that electrical stuff and putting it inside this box. But I can't just leave it open. So my plan here is to make another fiberglass top for this toolbox, but to make the top look like the top of a battery. So when it sits there, it mimics what a battery would look like. In other words, nice square size, fairly little lip all the way around. I don't think I'm going to put the posts in, but I'll put a couple little fictitious like vents on the top of it, like a battery would. My plan is to wet sand and buff the side of the box all the way around so it looks good. The top, I haven't figured out what kind of color I want to paint the top, but I'll figure that out at a later date. Obviously, I'm going to have to drill some holes in it, a couple mounting holes in the bottom. I'm also going to have to probably drill a hole or cut a hole in the corner so I can bring all my wiring in without any major issue. I might even have to put another hole on this side so I can run the battery cable out and up to the starter. So I'm going to have to do some modifications to it in order to make it right. But I should say the reason for that is because I want to through bolt through the top of the lid down to the box, kind of like I have on the little mule, because that design without the bolts on the side, but the bolt that, or the wing nut or the nut that holds it down through the top, I have found is much better. It holds it in place. It doesn't loosen up from the vibration, and it's just more solidly mounted. So that is my plan for this box. Now, I know some might be hissing at me saying, hey, why would you destroy such a good box? I need one for my tractor. Why don't you just make your own or just use a rustier one? And that's a very good position to take. But in my case, I didn't pay a lot for this. I only paid $20 for it, number one. Number two, it would take, a better part of a day for me to make one like this. For me personally, it's just not conducive to success. Let's put it that way. I'm just not going to reinvent the wheel when I could just buy this one and modify it up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to flip it over. I'm going to cover it with a garbage bag and get it ready for the first layer of fiberglass. So now with the box flipped over, so the actual opening's on the bottom and the bottom is here, I covered the entire thing with a black plastic bag, as you can tell, and that's basically going to be my release agent from the box itself. I'm going to now cut a couple pieces of coarse mat right here. I have some coarse fiberglass mat right here, and I'm going to cut those to kind of fit. I'm going to make it come down quite a bit, like pretty far, because I'll trim and cut it to where I want it. But essentially, I want to do the layout of the bottom piece. Now, I do have some wrinkles, and what we do is just kind of push and pull on the bag, and that will kind of smooth it all out, so that way we won't have too many wrinkles and air pockets to deal with. So let me get that all cut and put into place, and I'll show you what the next step, or at least the next step I do. So with the first layer of fiberglass in place, you can see how I just made some relief cuts in the corners so that way it would fold over. There's only one layer on this right now, and that's pretty much how I want it. I am going to have a little bit of an issue here. It's going to bubble out for some reason. It's because it's not going to stick, or it's not going to stay flat. So I'm going to have to monkey around with that eventually, but I'm only going to bring the resin to about, I don't know, maybe about an inch and a quarter below. I'm not going all the way down. I did cut one more piece that's going to lay right on the top, so that way that first cure will be just a very rough top, just very rough. So that way I can just get some sort of shape, and then from there I can work with using a more finer strand style fiberglass sheet in order to make it just fairly smooth, because ultimately I'm going to have to sand it and just coat it with some resin to really flatten it out. One thing is, today it is warm. It's probably a good, I'm not even going to have enough resin. I'm going to have to go to the HD in order to get some more, but it's going to kick quick, so I'm going to have to move fairly quick with this, because I want to get at least the first entire coat of resin in place before it kicks. So let me get to mixing. I got my cups here. As you can tell, these are well-used cups. Oop, they're over here. Got my hardener. I got plenty of paint sticks, and I do have an array of corn brushes in order to put that stuff on. So let me get to mixing. 10 drops to every ounce. I'm going to start off with about 4 ounces here, maybe 5, in order to just make sure I got a good solid coat all the way across. I'm thinking it's probably going to take about 15 minutes total in order for it to kick. All right, so let's get going. Layer 1 is complete, and I know visually it looks really bad, but this is just the first layer. This is just to get a very rough shape of what I'm looking to do. I'm basically out of resin. I thought I had more than this, but I don't. So I'm going to have to go off to HD in order to get some more resin so I can put the next layer on. It's almost completely cured, hardened, but I found a couple little outies, like it stretched out, so I just put these paint stir sticks in place just to push it in, so that way we can have a little bit straighter edge. Makes the sanding a lot easier. This side, as you can tell, is pretty wavy, but again, I'm not too concerned about this area down here because I'm going to cut it probably up here. So my next step is to cut some strips of the coarse fiberglass, and maybe about an inch and a quarter wide, and go all the way around this edge. Of course I just knocked it, but this edge. And to build that up and to give me some body so I can just sand it flat. So off to HD. So with a fair amount of time, I mean, this thing is hard, or fairly hard. I'm just going to take this paint stir stick. I'm going to shove it up underneath or between the fiberglass and the box itself. I'll work it all around. I'll push on it, and I'll get this thing off of the box. That way we can get the plastic bag out, and then we can take a look at what we have roughly. I slid the actual fiberglass piece off of the box, the bottom of the box, and I'm just going to show you, it's fairly, once you get this plastic to a certain point, it'll just kind of rip out. Now give me just a hair of leeway because I am using only one hand to do this, but there you go. It comes out that easy. And there's the inside of the lid that we've started, or I've started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this up with a pair of tin snips just to get the real rough stuff out of the way. And then I'm going to start building up the sides here with some coarse mat, so that way I can start to mimic the image of a battery top. Now with the bottom roughly cut, just to get rid of all that excess that I had on the bottom, I want to start to build up the sides so that way I can make a nice lip. So when this thing kind of fits down over the top of this box, there'll be a nice reveal, just like a battery would, just like a battery top. So I'm going to probably put maybe 5 or 6 of these mats into place. Now I'm not too concerned about where they all end up because I'm going to cut the bottom of this off eventually, probably about a ½ an inch below the top. So it doesn't matter. Just build it up and I'll just cut it off and sand it. But the one thing I do want to do is I want to bring the fiberglass mat kind of up like this. Let me see if I can get this to focus a little bit. Come on, you can do it. There it is. And the reason why I want that is because I want to square this edge off eventually. So I want this mat to be a little high, probably almost as even with the top. So that way I can eventually fill this all in and then I can sand it straight, just like a battery top would be. So right now what I'm going to do is I am actually, you know what? I apologize. This will be a multi-part build. I know, just what you wanted to hear. But I think right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off and make a part 2 after I get these sides all put in, because it's going to take me some time. I'm going to put about 2 layers of mat in place at a time. I'm not really going to make it all 5 all at once. And then I'll get it rough cut, and then we'll be back. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you will be interested in seeing how this battery top turns out. Please subscribe. Please like. If you can share it, I would be very appreciative of that also. I very much appreciate all of my loyal watchers and your support. And as always, have a good day.